Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar, How to Avoid Job Search Burnout. We are excited that you are here. If this is your first time at a FlexJobs webinar, thank you for checking us out. We are excited that you're here. And if you've been here before, thanks for coming back. We always enjoy these presentations and appreciate your participation as we get this information out there to help make your job search a little bit more manageable. As you are getting settled, we always just give everybody a few seconds to do so, join in Big Marker and get comfortable in the platform. Feel free to get used to using the chat and letting us know where you are joining from. The chat is a really great place for you to interact with us as well as the other attendees in the webinar, sharing any tips or tricks that you might have experienced as well when we go through all of the information. At the end of the presentation, we do have time for a Q&A with our career expert team. So for any questions that you have that you would like answered, please go ahead and put those in the Q&A section of Big Marker. That's where the career expert will look at those questions and prioritize them based on what you put in. And for any question that you see that you would also be interested in knowing the answer to, please give that a thumbs up. We get through as many questions as we can, but we don't always get through all of them. So prioritizing by you guys letting us know which questions you want the answer to is really helpful. We will be sending a link to the recording of this presentation and any resources that were used in putting it together. So you should see that in the email address or sent to the email address that you used to register for the event today within the next few days. If you don't see that, go ahead and check your spam filter. Sometimes spam filters are pretty strong and anything with links and information like that just goes directly there. So if you don't see it, please check there. Let's go ahead and get started on the topics that we are going to cover today, because I know you're all excited about that. We are going to cover all things burnout, particularly in your job search. I think, though, that some of the strategies and some of the information that we share on recognizing and avoiding burnout can also be applied to other aspects of your life, particularly, working from home. A lot of us, when we are searching for jobs, are working through that job search from home, right, outside of our workday. So these strategies can be applied to your work from home life as well. We'll talk about how you can combat burnout, and we'll go over some resources that will should help make your job search a little bit easier. And as I mentioned, we will do a Q&A at the end of the presentation. And I don't think I mentioned before that this presentation is pre-recorded, but the Q&A that we do at the end is live with one of FlexJobs career experts. So let's talk about recognizing and avoiding burnout. First, it's important to know or recognize, rather, if you are in the midst of burnout. And burnout is a syndrome that is conceptualized as resulting from chronic stress that has not been successfully managed. So some of the feelings that sort of bubble to the surface when you are burned out are a feeling of exhaustion. And with that comes, of course, lack of energy. For a job search specifically, burnout can cause disengagement and really feeling negative or cynical about it, like you'll never get out of it. You're doing all of this work and not getting a response at all. And it's making your mindset very negative and just draining, which then, of course, leads to a decrease in the productivity of your output for the job search activities you need to do to actually find a job. So these are all some key signs of burnout in your job search. And it's important to remember that burnout is not stress. They're different. Stress is something that's temporary. And while you can experience chronic stress, burnout is something that is a chronic unfolding condition that just seems to continue to feel like it's a spiral, or it's something that continues to weigh heavier and heavier and heavier, and you feel like you're falling deeper and deeper into a challenging place. So we all have stress and we all get stress from time to time. But these are some of the signs that if you are experiencing them on a regular basis, it's more than likely burnout versus stress. So I already mentioned like negative thinking about your job search and being cynical around it. The effort that it takes to be engaged in your activities. One of the things that we talk about is, there are always activities that energize you, that fill you up, that make you feel like you could keep going and going and going. And then there are activities that de-energize you. And the goal is never to get rid of, it's impossible to get rid of everything in this world that you don't like, right? But what you want to try to do is spend time and energy on the things that give you energy so that you can be propelled to get through those activities that are a little bit more draining. And a job search is something that can be draining. So some of the tools that we're going to talk about on how to manage or combat burnout will have to do with how you can re-energize yourself. If you're noticing that you are short-tempered with others, that you have a hard time concentrating, as well as even these physical symptoms that may manifest like head aching, stomach aching, back pain, neck pain, all of these symptoms that can be physical can be a sign of burnout. And for me, for example, a lot of times when I am at risk of burnout or feeling like I could be getting there or experiencing chronic stressful situations, I do manifest some physical symptoms. And so that might be true for you as well. One other key indicator is that every day is a bad day. And it feels like you can't get around that. That is another sign of burnout. So some of these causes, if we're being honest with ourselves, searching for jobs isn't necessarily fun. And I don't know that a lot of people would say it is something that's fun to do at all. So this is when we pick up a job search, we're already sort of preparing, I think, mentally that this is going to be something that's going to take effort, it's going to take patience, and it's going to take time. I did some research when I was preparing this presentation, and a recent report from Zippia found that it takes 21 to 80 job applications to get one job offer on average. And of course, 21 to 80 is a big difference of number of applications. In addition, the average corporate job opening receives about 250 applications. An IT job actually receives upwards of 360. So if you're in that field, there's even more applicants applying to each job. Just over 60% of job seekers will have at least one interview by sending 1 to 10 job applications, and half of job seekers receive a job offer after having 3 job interviews. So this is saying that for many of us, it's going to take us many applications to get an interview. And for about half of us, it's going to take us 3 interviews for different jobs before getting a job interview. Now, that's average. So some of us, it might take more time, and some of us, it could be less time. But the whole point is that a job search process right now is taking time. And the process can be boring. Tasks can feel overwhelming. And more times than not, at points in our job search, we're not seeing rapid results equitable to the work we feel like we put in. And we don't have a lot of control over the process. And before I go into the next slide, I do want to say that while we don't have a lot of control, or we feel like we have a lack of control over the process, if you can take back control over the things in the job search process that are within your control, this can help minimize burnout as well. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. In this section, tools and resources to help with burnout and to ease the job search process. So the first steps to overcoming burnout can include the following. So number 1, when you are not actively engaged in job searching, disconnect. Try not to think about it. Really escape the job search activities when you close your laptop or leave your office where you are looking at it. Talk about your job search, the challenges, the successes that you are having with a friend, a family member, or even to your pillow. I know that might be funny or seem funny or odd, but really being able to have a release of some of the struggles that you are having can make a big difference. Connecting with others who are in the same boat as you or who are also looking for a job. One of the plugs that I will give right now is that FlexJobs does have a LinkedIn group for people who are looking for flexible and remote work. So most people in that group, there's over 60,000, are looking for jobs or have jobs available. But this is an area where you could join a group like this, and everybody has a little bit in common. So you might be able to find some connections within that group that are doing and looking for the same type of job. And you might be able to talk back and forth about strategies and things like that. There are professionals out there, both in the career space as well as mental health, that you could seek out for additional help. You could also switch your approach or tactics to give yourself some variety. And we talk a lot about evaluating your job search efforts while you are going through the job search. And part of that evaluation is what's working and what's not, and making adjustments. And that's totally acceptable to do. And in fact, you should do that. Create structure for the daily search activities that you are doing. So for the job search activities that you're going to do each day, I suggest making a to-do list. If you search for jobs on Monday evening after work, before you finish your job search, what I would do is write down 3 or 4 things to do the next time you search for jobs, or when you pick your search back up. So if that's Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever day it is, you have your to-do list ready to go, so you can just get started on those items instead of just opening your computer and starting to read job postings, because before you know it, an hour or 2 can go by and you will feel like you won't have made much progress. And if we go back to revisit focusing on what you can control, things like how long it takes an employer to fill a role, how many interviews an employer will have before they extend an offer, how long the application is open, when an employer will contact you. All of these things are not within your control. You can't focus on those things. What you can focus on are the number of applications you submit, the quality of those applications, the networking, the follow-up, the preparation. So the things that you can control, there are actually quite a few in the job search that maybe are not necessarily intuitive, but take the power back and control those things. Give yourself power to manage the things that you can control. That will allow you to, of course, when you feel like you have control, feel like you're in a better headspace and you're making more progress. So that is what we recommend there. Also, I know I said that a job search isn't necessarily fun, but what if we can create more fun in the search or more excitement so that we are energized to keep going, even when it gets a little bit difficult? So some ways that you can do this is you want to take regular breaks. I had a client several years ago who was job searching over 40 hours a week and indicated that they had actually stopped doing their laundry because they had to job search. They were too busy job searching. That is burnout. That is not going to get the results that you want. So you have to take regular breaks. It's not fun to take a break to do laundry, but the point is that giving yourself the power, right, and control to take breaks and step away from the job search to do other things that need to get done or that you want to do is very important. One of the ways you can ensure that you do this is a simple exercise like setting a timer. Maybe you say, I'm going to apply to a job today, and I'm going to give myself 50 minutes to do an application. And when I'm done with that, I'm going to get up and walk away. Hopefully I'll have finished the application, but if I haven't, I'll come back. I'll set another timer for 20 minutes to finish up, and then I'll be done. Think about the space that you're using for your job search. Sometimes if you're working on a laptop, You might want to not do it in the same place that you do every day. So you're giving yourself some variety, and think about the environment in that space. Can you play some music that maybe energizes you, that gets you to keep going? Helping others is also something that can be really fulfilling and take the challenge of the job searching out of your mind for a little while. I have a gratitude practice that I do every day in general at 5:30. I have an alarm that goes off that says gratitude. And so I stop whatever I'm doing at 5:30 p.m. and think about one thing that I'm grateful for. I highly recommend this to everybody. If it is a job search season for you, think about one thing each day that you can be grateful for in the job search process. This can really help a mindset and can help things help you reframe some of those negative thoughts that enter in naturally when things aren't going as quickly as we would like. And just like the first bullet, taking regular breaks, I will end with walking away from that job search and unplug for a while. And sometimes people take a break from their job search for consecutive days or weeks, right? And so that's okay too. You know your specific situation and you want to follow through with that situation and mitigate these opportunities in a way that works into your schedule. Another thing that's really important is to avoid isolation while you're doing your job search. And it's easy to just hole up at home and spend all of our free time looking for a job, but really connecting with others, especially other job seekers, will remind you that you aren't alone in this journey. We also have a few other things to bust the isolation bubble. Attending webinars like these, FlexJobs and other places have many opportunities for helpful job seeker topics. At FlexJobs, for FlexJobs members, we have a weekly career expert live Q&A. You can go ahead and seek out other people to help you make sure you are aiming for other non-job search activities. You might find another person who is looking for a job to pair up with as an accountability partner. Having some informational interviews with people who work at organizations that you are targeting or who are doing the type of work you like to do, that's another option for you. And making sure that you have set time parameters and boundaries across when you are going to do your job search can help avoid isolation. All right, so what do we do? Make sure that you're proactive in this. Identify where you are and when you think you are experiencing burnout and what the causes of your burnout is so that you can make some adjustments and focus on those areas in your job search that you can control. Connecting with others is key, not only for the job search in general, but for avoiding isolation, which will mitigate the risk of burnout. If you can make it a little bit more fun and less serious and even implement some gratitude around the process, that can be very powerful as well. And it can give you the strength and the energy to keep moving forward. All right, all of that to say, we will go to our Q&A in a few seconds. Please know that you can go to the flexjobs.com blog to see any articles on job search burnout, as well as any other topic in your job search, and look for this recording within the next few days. And we will go ahead and get started with the questions. All right, everybody, let's see what we have.
Okay, so we will now go ahead and move into our Q&A portion of the webinar today. Before we get rolling, could someone let me know in the chat section if you can hear me okay? All right, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. So my name is Keith Spencer, and I am one of our career experts here at FlexJobs, and I will be conducting the Q&A with you all today. Just as a quick reminder, please make sure that you're putting your questions in that Q&A section rather than the chat section, and make sure to click a thumbs up if you see a question that you would like to hear the answer to, so I can see which questions are the most popular. And I do just want to say there's been some great conversation in the chat today, a lot of good advice in there. So I really appreciate appreciate the thoughtful discussion. So let's go ahead and dive in. So our first question here says, does the easy apply work against you as opposed to applying to the company directly, or do employers authorize that with LinkedIn? So the easy apply feature on LinkedIn, couple things here. That is something that an employer can opt into. So if they have opted into that, you will see the easy apply button with that job posting. And there are some advantages to the easy apply feature. It sort of eliminates the need for that separate application form through the employer's application portal on their website. It can save you some time. It makes it sort of a more streamlined process for you. But there are some drawbacks as well, because it's going to limit your ability to customize your application materials. So like customize your resume. If your LinkedIn profile is not necessarily a perfect fit for that position, it limits your ability to customize that. It also, you might see for easy apply job postings, it might mean that the competition is going to be that much greater. That's not to say that you shouldn't apply to those roles that have the easy apply feature available, but because there is the easy apply there, they might see an increase in the number of people that are applying because they can do so with that easy apply feature. So if you are seeing that easy apply, or I guess I'll say, what I would do in that situation, whether I, saw that easy apply feature or not, is I'm still going to apply through that company website. It's going to allow me to customize my application, really tailor my materials. The easy apply feature also would not allow you to potentially upload like a cover letter or like writing samples or references, some of those supplemental materials that you would want with your application. So I personally would avoid using that easy apply. I always recommend actually applying on the company's website through their application portal. Make sure that you're tailoring and customizing your application for that individual job. Like I saw someone phrase it in the chat section earlier, taking the quality over quantity approach. That's the advice that I always recommend. So easy apply feature doesn't necessarily work against you, but there are definitely some drawbacks, and your application might not be as comprehensive and tailored as you might want it to be. So very good question there. Thank you for asking. Okay, so we have a question here. Would you recommend hiring a professional resume service? Have we heard good things or bad things about those services? Yeah, so that's a very good question. And, it really kind of depends on you and your situation. Some of these services, they're not free. So, you would want to kind of look into the type of financial investment that it might require, see if it's within your budget. If you are someone who maybe hasn't updated your resume in a long time, and the thought of writing a resume is really intimidating to you, certainly wouldn't hurt to have a professional resume service write your resume for you. In past roles that I've had, I have written resumes for clients, and one of the pieces of advice that I always gave them when I sent them their resume is then to use that resume as kind of their base resume. So use it as their starting point with the applications that they want to submit. You want to make sure that you are paying attention to what is included in that resume and how relevant it is going to be for your individual job application. So, when I wrote resumes for clients, I would not recommend send this exact resume out to every single job you apply for. I would give them advice on making sure that they are really analyzing that job description, seeing if there are specific skills or responsibilities or accomplishments or qualifications that they want to emphasize based on what is included in that job description. Search that job description for keywords and phrases to make sure that they are going to be scoring well with applicant tracking systems, things like that. Really taking that, again, quality over quantity approach, making sure their application materials are heavily tailored for individual roles. So kind of a long-winded answer there. I apologize, but resume services are definitely a good option for folks, and if it's within your budget, go for it. That's not a bad idea. But then do make sure that you are taking the final resume that they then provide you, and making sure that it's emphasizing the right things that you want emphasized, and making sure that you're taking the time to tailor it for individual roles. Very good question, though. Thank you. Um, okay, so here's somebody, just kind of a general question. They've been job searching for over 3 months, feeling very burned out and disheartened. Any tips? They've taken breaks. They're developing some anxiety and uh, anxiety for, excuse me, working in a physical place. I'm interpreting that as, making sure that they want to target remote roles. So, a couple just kind of general tips here. And to share personal experience, like I have been in your shoes. I have found myself during periods of unemployment for one reason or another, struggling to find a job quickly. That is one of the things that is really frustrating about job search is rejection is often the name of the game. Almost everyone has applied to more jobs than they have actually been hired for. So rejection is part of the process. That's not, doesn't necessarily make it easier, but knowing that can help you kind of steel yourself or guard yourself against the impact of that rejection that you may encounter. So that's one piece of advice, just sort of acknowledging that and knowing that. Then kind of reflecting on some of the things that were mentioned during the presentation today, and then also saw some people mentioning these things during in the chat section as well. Scheduling some time for yourself. If you're just sitting down at your computer all day long applying for jobs, getting rejections, like that's going to take a toll on you. So when I have been in periods in my life where I'm searching for jobs and maybe struggling to find jobs, I set realistic goals for myself. So I take that quality over quantity approach. I would much rather submit 5 really well thought out, heavily tailored applications each week than apply to 20 to 40 jobs each week with the same application materials. So, I would set those reasonable goals somewhere between 5 to 10 applications each week. I would make sure that I am really doing my research into each company, looking at reviews or any information I can get about the company so that I can use that in tailoring my application materials as well as determining if that company's a good fit for me. I would thoroughly analyze that job description, like I mentioned. So I'm tailoring my resume and my cover letter for that job. I would look up on LinkedIn to see if I could find a recruiter or a hiring manager or someone who is potentially in charge of the team for the job to which I applied so that I could conduct some thoughtful follow up about a week after I submit my application, really trying to take that quality over quantity approach. And then I would have time for myself where I could walk away, where I could go take my dog for a walk, or, I really enjoy like woodworking and gardening. So I would schedule some time where I could also engage in my hobbies, those things that will, kind of fill my bucket, so to speak, so that I am not just completely burned out, like just focusing solely on job searching. Because when you get to that point where you're really burned out, that's when you start to make mistakes. You're going to start seeing typos and grammar errors in your application materials. And, you're going to accidentally submit the wrong resume for this job when it should have gone to this job. And you're going to lose track of the number of jobs you've applied to and maybe accidentally apply to the same job twice. So you need to find that balance. If you're someone who's maybe a morning person, then knock out 2 applications in the first part of your day and then schedule some time where you can go fill your bucket later on in the day. And do keep in mind too, in terms of what I was talking about with rejection, the average job search does take about 6 months. So I know you mentioned in your question here you've been at it for about 3 months. Like that is not outside normal circumstances. 3 months is in line with that kind of average, that 4 to 6 months for the average job search. So just make sure that you are not hitting it so hard that you are burning yourself out. Make sure that you are taking that quality over quantity approach, finding time to fill your bucket as you need to. That is really, really important. So I'm going to leave it there so that we can get 1 or 2 more questions in here today, but hopefully some of that was helpful for you. Okay, so this one we've touched on a little bit already, but this person's asking, should resumes use words from the job description to get past the ATS? Have heard that this helps as long as your skills do match the job. Yeah, so a couple things there. You want to apply for jobs. I usually call it like the 60% rule. You want to apply for jobs where you can confidently say, okay, I have done or can do at least 60% of what they're looking for. So that should be kind of your baseline qualifications match there that you're looking for. Then then make sure that you are using those keywords and phrases from the job description to kind of mirror their language. Make sure you're speaking to your audience in a way that is going to be relevant and applicable to them. You always want to be thinking about your audience. What is going to matter to them? What is going to be impactful for them? And then present your experience in a way that will resonate with them. So I mentioned, kind of having a base resume earlier. I have like a master resume that is 5 or 6 pages long that has maybe, 20 or so bullet points for every job I've ever done, describing every task or responsibility I've ever held. Then when I find a job I want to apply for, I make a copy of that resume. I'll retitle it like Keith Spencer for, or excuse me, Keith Spencer resume for, and then the company name. And then I start just pulling out the bullet points that aren't relevant. So that's kind of how I start tailoring my application materials to that job. Then I do that thorough analysis. Again, I look for those keywords and phrases, make sure that I'm mirroring some of their same language. So the applicant tracking system will hopefully score me, pretty highly there. So that could definitely help you. But yes, tailoring for the applicant tracking system is a really good idea. Highly recommend that. Okay, so here's a question about kind of the follow-up protocol, that I mentioned, reaching out to a recruiter or hiring manager on LinkedIn. This person is specifically asking, if we have an initial interview and don't hear back, can we follow up with them at that stage? Also, does it differ for internal versus external recruiters? So unless the job description specifically states like, do not contact us, I always recommend following up, whether you've had an interview yet or not. If you've applied to a job, you haven't heard anything back, give it about a week, then see if you can find a recruiter or hiring manager, or like I said, maybe someone who's in charge of that team for that role that you applied for, and then reach out to them, kind of just quickly and concisely, state who you are, the job you applied for, and then try to establish that connection. Mention something that you really like about the company or the role, and then mention one or two things that highlight sort of your potential impact. So mention like a success that you've had, or that you've been doing this type of work and you've been highly successful at it for a number of years. Like try to demonstrate your fit sort of to get them to give you a second look there, and then you could ask them about the status of the hiring process. That's kind of a nice way of saying, hey, why haven't you called me or emailed me yet? So that's what I recommend in terms of following up. So the protocol would be definitely can follow up unless they explicitly state in that job description, do not contact us. If you've had an interview and you haven't heard back from them yet, same thing. Chances are they're interviewing a bunch of different people. Maybe they're still conducting interviews. Maybe they are considering who they want to move into the next round of interviews, or are working on making their final, decision. You can reach out and say, reiterate like, hey, I really enjoyed getting to speak with you the other day. I really think this would be a good fit for me because of, and again, highlight your impact a little bit. Could you tell me, the status of your decision making process or something like that? There is always that chance if you haven't heard back from them after an interview that maybe you didn't make the cut. But taking that time to follow up is going to, whether it be after an interview or after your application, is going to kind of re-demonstrate your genuine interest. Gives you a chance to maybe mention one or two things that you didn't before about your fit or the potential impact that you could have. So it really only is going to reflect positively on you. Might not end up influencing their decision, but there's always that chance it could get them to take a second look at you, and maybe keep you within that interview process. So very good questions here today. I really, really appreciate everyone's thoughtful questions and the wonderful discussion that was happening in the chat. I wish we had more time together. We're actually a couple minutes over time already, so we are going to draw to a close. I do encourage you to check out some, additional webinars that we have coming up. We also do our weekly Q&A sessions, which is 30 minutes long of this kind of Q&A back and forth. So definitely consider joining us for a future webinar or Q&A discussion. Thank you again for being here. Really hope this was helpful for you, and I appreciate the thoughtful discussion and questions. All right, take care, everyone.